Hi there, my name's Vince from mymatevince.com, and in this video today we're going to be showing you how you can use your mobile cell phone to answer your landline telephones. So this will work in the house, but also when you're out and about. You can be anywhere in the world and you will be able to use your mobile cell phone to answer your calls on your landline telephone, even though you're nowhere near your landline telephone. Now, to be able to do this, we are going to have to use a piece of equipment, and the piece of equipment that we're testing in this video is this Swissvoice Voice Bridge unit here. It's a nice little unit, very small in size, and it is so easy to set up. So I'm going to show you how to set it up now. Basically, all you have to do is you have to plug it into your telephone line and also your router or router if you're from the States, and provide power to it, and that is it. It will update itself when you first of all plug it in, so it will take a few minutes just to set up, and then on your phones you just have to download the app. Just type in Voice Bridge, and this works on iOS, so that's basically your Apple products, and also Android as well. Now iOS is all up and running, working really well. The Android side of it is still in beta, depending on where you are in the world, and it needs to iron out a few more bugs to work properly. But at the moment, remember, this is still a new product, so give it time and it will work seamlessly. But at the moment, it's still there. It's still not 100% perfect. Why would you want to do this? Right, okay. First things, it's kind of handy to be able to answer your landline phone when you're out and about, especially if you were a business. Now, a lot of people do call forwarding, where the customers ring into their landline telephone, and then if the person's out of the office, let's say if you're a one-man band estate agent, for example, if you're out of the office, then you will have it forwarded onto your mobile phone. The problem with that is that you're picking up the bill from your landline to your mobile. So let's say Mrs. Smith phones your landline, she's just paying that local rate, or if it's included in their mobile minutes, you know, she pays for that call because she's phoned you. But you have to pick up the bill from your landline to your mobile phone, which is understandable because the customer's not going to pick up that bill. So that can work out quite expensive, and also depending on what service you have, sometimes the customer can hear like the phone, you know, they can say that the call's being forwarded and it might confuse them. On this product here, you're going to pay a one-off charge, which I think is roughly about £80, this UK sterling, and then it will forward it on. It won't cost you anything, so it doesn't cost you anything. The customer still just pays for their normal phone call to your landline, and then this will give the link between your landline and your mobile for free, so there's no charges involved. Now, that really is the main feature. That I think that's the best feature. But also, a lot of people now, you know, you're so used to using the technology on your mobile phones, and they just, you know, the screens, everything just works nicely. While I appreciate that this DECT phone now is quite a few years old, but even the newer DECT phones, they're not as nice, that the money hasn't been spent on them the same as the mobile phones. So what you can do is, if you're not a lover of using the digital phones or your landline phones, what you can just do is you can start reusing the old phones in your house. So if you have this is an old iPod. This is a newer iPod, but these can all become your handsets. So in theory, you don't need landline telephones anymore. I mean, it is good to have one corded phone just in case there was, for example, a power cut, or if your router stops working, if you lose your service into the house, then obviously you won't be able to take the calls when you're out and about because your router is no longer connected to the internet. But a lot of people like using their mobile phone more than the landline phone. So in theory, you could just get rid of all your landline phones apart from one corded one for safety, and then you could just have these dotted around the house, and you can use these for not only your mobile calls but also your landline calls. The other thing, which is a handy thing, is let's say now if you're a family and you've got, you know, numerous people living in the house. Well, on the phone book on these, maybe you don't want to have 100 numbers listed from your son's numbers and your daughter's or whatever, whoever lives with you. The good thing about the Voice Bridge is everybody's calls, it picks up the calls from your own cell phone's phone book, which is also normally up to date. Because think about it, you kind of keep your mobile cell phone up to date, but you tend not to keep your landline DECT phones up to date. So let's say you will have all your contacts on here, and then I can dial out on my landline on my phone. Then, for example, if my daughter has a huge amount of contacts in her iPod, she can dial out on the landline using her iPod. So she doesn't have to use my contacts, she will use the contacts on her own device. So if there's, it can connect up to 5 devices. So if you have 5 different people, you know, living with you with all different contacts, they can use their own contacts to dial out using a voice bridge. So that's a really, really handy feature. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a live setup now, just to show you how it works, and I'm going to ring in a few times. You can see it ringing on the different phones, and then you can you get a better idea of what's involved. Okay, so now we're going to do a setup, see how easy this thing is to connect up. Now, in the actual voice bridge box itself, you have instructions, and the good thing is inside you've got connectors for many different countries. So you've got your RJ11 phone connector here, and this is actually a double adapter, so that's handy. You've got the French style connector there, Switzerland style connector, and the German style connector, and these are all RJ11 to the particular countries. And then obviously you have your RJ11 to RJ11 lead. I put the UK style adapter on it, so it's really easy to use. You just plug it in like so. And also, as far as the power is concerned, at the moment, because I'm in the UK, I've put the UK plug on it, but you also get these 2 other variants here, these 2 pin connectors here. Yeah, so you do get a lot in the box. What you don't get though, if you're from the UK, and I presume France and Germany or any country that doesn't use the RJ11, you don't get a double adapter. So for example, normally the socket you will want to use will probably be in use, in which case then you're going to need to get a double adapter to plug into the socket, so you can then plug in your telephone line back into it, and also the voice bridge connector. So if you're from the UK, you're going to have to get yourself a little double adapter as well. Maybe in the future they might start including it in their kits. Now remember that if you're from the UK, or if you're in a country that's using microfilters, you will have to filter this voice bridge connection here, because this is using a normal voice connection, so it has to be filtered. So this will have to be plugged into your microfilter. In this instance here, I'm using Virgin Media, so the broadband comes down a completely separate cable. But if you're using, in the UK, if you've got a open reach service, so if you're with Sky or PlusNet or BT, then you are going to have to plug this into your microfilter. So make sure that the voice bridge, this box here, make sure it is filtered. So nice and simple, you just plug it in there like so. Now, this isn't a Wi-Fi box. It has to have a wired connection. So it's going to have to be plugged into your router, or in this instance here, I've wired up my house where all these sockets go back to my router. So by plugging it into this top socket here, it is the same as being plugged into the router. But normally your router, especially if you're in the UK and like I said before, using a BT type service, an OpenReach type service, your router is going to be by your phone socket, because that's how you plug it in. So in an instance like that, it's going to be very easy for you to plug in. So all you've got to do is plug in your telephone line into this port here, which has the telephone symbol, like so. Now this is our Ethernet ports here. Now they give you an Ethernet cable, a very flimsy one. I presume if you were going to have, if it was being plugged into a very noisy environment, it might be worth plugging in, you know, a standard Cat5e or Cat6 cable. As I say, when I tested this, I didn't have any problems with this cable, but I'm just saying, if you were to have problems, it might be worth swapping this cable over to one that would pick up less interference. So let's plug that in there, and we're going to plug it into the top ports here, because I know that this port goes back to my router. And then we need to provide it with power. For those of you that are wanting to know, this outputs 5 volts, 0.5 amp, so 500 milliamps. Yeah, okay. And it's got a little micro USB connector there. Right, so let's plug it in and give it power. Now the first time you do this, just plugs in there like so, it will update itself. Hopefully you can see the little blue light there. So believe it or not, that is it. Just let it update itself for a couple of minutes. That is how you connect up the Voice Bridge adapter. So that's all you need to do. It's really straightforward. Now what we're going to have to do is, I've already done this, but you're going to have to get your phone and you're going to have to go onto either the App Store or Google Play, and you're going to have to download the app, which is basically if you download Voice Bridge. Now if you wanted to see the requirements, so minimum requirement, have a Wi-Fi gateway and a phone line. Now remember, you can also connect a VoIP line onto here. So for example, if you were to have a Vonage and the port at the back where you plug your phone into, well then you can plug your Voice Bridge into that port itself. So it doesn't have to be a fixed line to use this Voice Bridge, but you have to have physical dial tone to be able to use it. So for example, like, you know, when you get the Vonage adapter, and on the back it will often have a little RJ11 port that will then convert in the UK again to a BT socket. Well, all you need to do is plug in the RJ11 lead into that socket there, and then it will provide dial tone into this Voice Bridge. And the so if you minimum requirement, and if you have a look there, works with any device iOS 7 or more. Have a look down there. So it says iPod 5th generation, but mine's a 6th generation. It works absolutely fine. Okay, so what we're going to do is now I'm going to go back over to the table, back at the desk, and we're going to do a bit of ringing around in between the phones to show you what's what. Now, just to show you the lineup, this one here is my cordless decked phone, my landline phone. This is what I normally use to make and receive landline calls. This one here is my mobile cell phone that I normally use when I'm out and about to make mobile cell calls. And then I've got two iPod Touches. This one here is a very old one, and this one here is a newer one, which is the 6th generation. And I've also got a normal Android phone that we're going to be using to ring into my phone. So we're going to pretend that this Android phone here is, for example, a friend that's ringing in from another part of the country or a different country or anywhere else in the world. Okay, so first of all, the Voice Bridge app. So once you've downloaded it, you will now have a Voice Bridge app here. So to open it up, you just tap it, and then you will have different things. So basically, you will have your call list, you will have your number here, or you can go into your phone book and dial people. That's straight on the phone book there. So now, if you were to look at my call list here, on all of it, it will say hidden. Now, the Voice Bridge does allow caller ID to come through. The problem is, on my Virgin Media line, I don't pay for caller display because I don't really need it. So the problem is, when people phone into my landline, when it comes through my Voice Bridge, it's going to come through as hidden because I haven't enabled caller display. Now, most people do have caller display, but if you haven't got it, it will come up as hidden. But if you were to enable caller display, and for example, if in your phone book you had somebody, let's say if you had a friend called Bob, and he was under here, under a certain number in your phone book, when Bob rings your landline, it's then going to come through on your Voice Bridge app as Bob, because it's under your contacts as Bob, and it will release the caller ID. But unfortunately for this video, it is just going to come through as hidden because I don't have caller display because I don't really need it. Now, okay, so a good feature of it is you can do internal dialing. Now, with internal dialing, most of you, if you have these digital phones, probably already have it. You will have a button saying internal or intercom, something like that. So if you were to press that button there, it's then going to be ringing my other decked handset. And if you were to have more than one, then you could just go around and you could press like internal 1, internal 2, internal 3, and it will ring each of the handsets. But you can also do that on the Voice Bridge. So for example, if you didn't have cordless phones, you might not have been able to do internal dialing before. So good thing about internal dialing, let's say if you were to live in a big mansion off a house and you wanted to call down your son or daughter for dinner and you were shouting up and they weren't able to hear you, what you could do is you could press internal and it's going to bring up the other phones that are connected to the Voice Bridge. Now remember, you can have up to 5 phones connected. So in this instance, they're both down as iPod Touch Hattie, blah, blah, blah. That's because my this old iPod is no longer really in use, and it's the same account on the new iPod. If they were different accounts, they would be coming up with different things. So, okay, so if I was to do, for example, I know that the bottom one is the old iPod and the top one's the new iPod, just because I've obviously already been doing a testing. So if I was to touch this one here, it should start ringing on the old iPod, which it has done. Okay, so then you can pick up the call and tell them to come down for dinner. If I hang up on that. Now, so if I was to now do the internal dialing and ring the top one, it should start ringing through to here. There we go, and if you have a look here, it will say Voice Bridge, slide to answer. So slide that to answer, and we should now be connected. So if I was to put this one here on loudspeaker. Hello? 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 Testing, testing. Okay, and turn that off. So now we've got the internal call between these two here, and obviously it works both ways as well. So let's say if this phone was just on standby like it normally is, and then we would go to keypad, and we're going to go to keypad, and we're going to go to internal. And now it gives us the option, it gives and VF895N, which is my mobile phone here. So if I was to tap that top one here, it should start ringing through internally on this, and it tells you who's calling. Okay, so that's the internal dialing. Now, to do outgoing calls, so let's say now if we wanted to make an outgoing call, you can just dial your number here like you would normally do. So I'm just going to show you now, just to show you the dial tone, just so you recognise what the dial tone's like. Let's say if I was just to do 1, which obviously is not a number, but if I do 1, you should hear. Can you hear that dial tone? There we go. So it was only for a second, but basically by going onto the Voice Bridge app, you're now using the landline telephone to dial out. So if I was to go into this one here, because this is where I'm going to now ring this particular phone here. Okay, but what I'm going to do is, because I don't want the number coming through, I'm just going to turn it round, okay? So I'm going to go into the Voice Bridge app, and then I'm going to go into my phone book here, but I'm not going to show you now what I'm doing, but I'm going to go down now, and I'm going to phone this phone here, and it's going to be phoning it using my landline, not my mobile. Right, see, here dial tone. There we go. Okay, so it's now phoning this one here through my landline, but my landline, I'm not touching it, I'm doing it all via the mobile phone here. So I'm just going to end that there. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take off my Wi-Fi, so I'm going to disable my Wi-Fi, so it's then going to be using the cellular network, and that's the same then as having this phone anywhere in the world. Then when you're on holiday, you can connect to your Wi-Fi in the hotel if that's free, or you can just use your cellular network and use your data, and then what you can do is you can go via the Voice Bridge and you can make a call on Voice Bridge, which is then going to make the call from the UK. So it's only going to charge you that UK rate, or the local rate, or if it's like it's free in the evenings, then it's not going to cost you anything. So if you're abroad, you can end up using your landline for free if you have free calls on your landline. So that's another great feature of this. So let's go and turn our Wi-Fi off. So if I go to Wi-Fi up here, I've now turned off my Wi-Fi. So I'm just going to use the Vodafone UK network. Now, this does take a few minutes to register that it's no longer on Wi-Fi. So if you were to get a call straight away when you just left your house in the car, it's not going to come through because the Voice Bridge takes a few minutes to go on to the cellular network. So I'm just going to let that happen now, and then come back to the video and show you it ringing in using the using this mobile phone. We're going to ring into my landline, but yet we're going to answer the call on my mobile. And because the Wi-Fi is disconnected, that's the same as this phone being anywhere else in the world. Right, okay, so it went through quite quickly that time. It only took about a minute. So what we're going to do now is we're going to pretend that we're all, that this phone here is out and about. So just to show you again, there is no Wi-Fi. I'm connected to the actual cellular network. Okay, so when you're out and about, it's still going to ring your stuff at home as well. So if there's somebody at home, they can still answer the calls, but you'll see the kind of delay, because what happens is when you start ringing, it will ring on the landline instantly, which it normally does. Then normally 2 or 3 rings later, it will then kick over to the other items that's connected to the voice bridge. So it doesn't ring on them instantly. This could cause you a problem if you have an answer service or an answer machine that's set to cut in after, let's say, 3 or 4 rings. Because remember now, you're going to be out and about. So somebody's going to ring your landline. It's going to ring here about 3 times. So they're going to hear it ringing about 3 times, start to think you're going to answer the call. Then it's going to kick onto this here. But it might take you like another 2 or 3 rings to get this out of your pocket and answer it, or out of your bag or stuff. So by now it's rung here about 6, it's rung, the person that's rung you, it's rung about 6 times. So bear that in mind if you've got an answer machine. So for the purpose of this video now, I've turned my answer machine off because it kicks in after 5 rings. You're going to have to make it kick in after a longer amount of time. So if you have an answer service, see if you can play around with the settings to give yourself more time, because if it's set to kick in after 4 rings, that's not going to give you a chance to answer this call, because half of the rings have already gone before it's even registered the call. So okay, so now remember, this is my landline. These 2 are still connected to Wi-Fi to my router. This is now purely a cellular phone, so this could be anywhere in the world. Right, okay, so I'm going to ring now my landline from this Android phone here. So again, pretend that this is somewhere else in the country that's ringing me. Okay, so it started to ring. You can hear now it's ringing on my landline. So that's the 2nd ring and nothing's happened yet. Okay, now it's coming through here on the 3rd ring. So I'm now going to answer it, and you can see it's ringing here. It still hasn't come through on this iPod here yet. I'm going to answer it now. Okay, so now, hello, hello. I'm using, let's see if I can get this on loudspeaker. Hello? 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 And let's get this on loudspeaker. Hold on. Okay, hello, hello. Hello, hello. Yeah, so you can see that it's using my landline phone to make these calls between them, even though we're going from one mobile to another. I phoned the landline and yet we're speaking on here. So let's turn that off because it's irritating. And off there. Right, okay, for some reason it didn't ring through on the iPod this time, so I'm gonna just try that again to see what's happening. And also you will get notifications to say Voice Bridge, 2 answered calls on your fixed landline. And it will also notify you if you lose internet connection on your router as well. It will say no longer able to connect to Voice Bridge. So let's see why it didn't ring through. Let's try that one again now. Let's actually go into the Voice Bridge app. It could be because, I think I know why it is, I haven't got great Wi-Fi signal at this table, and when I put the iPod down, I believe that the iPod uses the Wi-Fi through here, so I think it's because I've got it flat on here, it's losing the signal. So what we're going to do is, let's do it again, but this time I'm going to have the iPod faced here, so you can just barely see it. I'm going to ring again and see if it rings through onto here. So let's do that test one more time. Again, I'm phoning my landline from this Android phone here, which isn't connected to my Wi-Fi or anything. So it's the same as ringing from anywhere in the world. Okay, starts ringing here now. 2 rings. Okay, starts ringing here and here at the same time. And also, can you see here, it's come through now. Yeah, so that's the reason why. And you can answer it on these ones as well if you wanted. Hello, hello. There you go. So it's connected it up onto the iPod Touch this time. Let's turn that off and turn that off. So it's like I said, it's not perfect, but it is pretty good. What I did find on a few of the conversations I had, there seemed to be, although it sounded perfect on my end, when I was using the cellular side of it, so on Wi-Fi, it all worked fine. But when I had this out and about, and when people were ringing me on my landline and I was answering it on my mobile phone, what I found is sometimes they were saying, the other end was saying that there was an echo. So they would speak and then they would hear their own voice again a second later. And I've had that before on voice over IP calls, and it is really off-putting. It's hard to hold the conversation because you can just hear yourself again a second later. But the idea is great. The simplicity of it is great. The fact that you just plug it in and it starts working. And for £80, I think personally, I think it's worth it. You know, if you like this kind of thing and mucking about with this sort of thing, it's a one-off. You haven't got to sign up to anything. You haven't got to register anything. You just need to download the app, and then downloading the app literally takes seconds. It's really easy to do. So should you rush out and get it? Maybe not. But let's say now, if you were thinking about getting yourself new cordless phones, well, you might already have quite a few Android phones and stuff that might be up to date enough to accept this anyway. So maybe instead of going out and spending 50 or 60 pound on a set of, you know, a triple set of phones, you could just go and buy the Voice Bridge for 80 pounds, and then you could just use these handsets instead of using these, and you'll have a load more functions to be able to do. The internal dialing and stuff is nice, and the feature, which like I said before, I think is the main one, is the fact of the call forwarding. So you can then, if you are expecting an important landline call and you don't want to wait in all day, you might not have given your mobile number to the person that's ringing you on the landline, then you can just go out and you can just take the call on the landline. So I think that is the best feature. So hopefully you found this video useful. It gives you a bit more info, and then you can make up your own mind. You can Google Swissvoice Voice Bridge and go out there, you know, read the reviews on Amazon, see what you think. And yeah, if you like these sort of videos, please subscribe for more. Give it a thumbs up if you found it helpful. I've got loads of how-to videos if you check out my YouTube channel. Okay, take care now. Thanks very much. Bye.